my professor encouraged me to consider doing doing broadcast media, radio and TV. And that's probably why I started interning at different radio stations and stuff like that. I think I like broadcast media and broadcast journalism better. I do want to be a media personality, not particularly a journalist, because I want to be, to commentate. And but I also feel like today's world, there's not really, people don't kind of know the difference between a journalism and a media personality.
Y'all know I always talk about how important it is to be in a group chat, especially when you're in the media business. And I would think no matter what field you are in, it's important to network with other people. Now, I'll admit when it comes to music, I don't listen to a lot of popular stuff from today's music. I'll listen to what's popping on the radio once or twice, or if I go out and I hear a song that catch my ear, I'll listen to that. But my guest today is all about that life. And that's the one and only Khaaliq Crowder. Khaaliq is someone who really loves the music business, but most importantly, just loves pop culture. So he comes on to discuss that, how he got in the business, but not necessarily as an artist, but more as a journalist, producer, and he talks about his goals. And one of the things that was interesting is his time interning with Sway in the Morning. So he's going to talk about all of that, as well as let you know what it's like to be behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my interview with Khaaliq Crowder. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have one of the best music programmers and personalities on the line. That is the one, the only Khaaliq Crowder. We're going to call him Leak. What's up, man? How you feeling?
What's up? I'm feeling great.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on, wanted to share your story. So what's cool is that, I said I created this podcast as an opportunity to share my network and friends with the world. And I'm not always up to date on music. Call me old or whatever, my favorite group of all time, rap wise, is Cash Money, and R&B group is Dru Hill. So I know that you like, dang, you old. But one thing I can always rely on between the group chat and Twitter is that you gonna keep me updated.
Yeah, and I do, I was gonna say, for the fact I do know Dru Hill. Well, I mean, I know, like, I'm not familiar with their music, but of course, Cisco, knew him growing up, musically, not personally.
I know what you mean. And I'm biased because I am from Baltimore, and Dru Hill was, they named after Dru Hill Park, which, not that I hung out over there, but, that's my favorite group. Now, I will admit, Boys to Men, may have the better vocals, but Dru Hill had the better hits that I like. But let's get right to it. So you're at the University of New Haven. What made you choose that school? I have to ask.
So going in high school, I knew that I wanted to be in entertainment. I always knew I wanted to be in entertainment since I was little, period. Whether I wanted to be rich, because there was a time that I wanted to be a real estate developer, because I was like, oh, they make a lot of money. But in high school, I wanted to be in the music industry. I wanted to kind of go down like the L.A. Reid, Clive Davis kind of route. So when I was looking at colleges, I was trying to see what colleges carry my major. I really wanted to go to schools like at NYU, or I really wanted to go to University of Southern California. But I have an overprotective mother who was like, yeah, I don't want you to go to college that far just because, we don't have family. Well, now I realize I have family over there. But at the time, we didn't know anyone really over there for me to go that far to college and something happens. And so when I originally applied to the University of New Haven, I went for their music industry program, and I learned about it. I applied for that program, but I learned about it because Billboard magazine, they had like a list of the best schools to go to if you want to be in the music business, and UNH was on that list, and you didn't have to audition, because some schools, they want you to audition for it. And, the people need to realize you can work in the music business, but you don't have to be a singer, a producer, or a songwriter. So I applied to UNH in 2014. I didn't get in. And then I took a semester off. I went to community college after high school for a semester. That didn't work out. And I took a semester off from school to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And so I went to a school called Newberry College, which has since been shut down because it was incredibly small. It was like less than 1,000 students, and the school was having a lot of financial difficulties. But at the time, I went for a year, and I decided to transfer over to UNH because it was a little bit closer to home. Newberry was in Boston, which was about 4 hours from where I live, where I'm come from, Long Island, New York. And so I decided just to stay in communications when I went to UNH because had I tried to switch over to music industry, it wouldn't have carried. It wouldn't have credits wouldn't have transferred over, and I would have been in school for longer. And then they wouldn't let me minor. They wouldn't let me minor in music industry at UNH because this program is not big enough, even though it's prominent. It's kind of weird. And when I went to Newberry, I fell in love with communication. I was like, okay, this is really up my alley. And so that's how I ended up at the University of New Haven.
And so when did you first fall in love with music?
I wouldn't just say music. I would just say like popular culture, period. But I don't know. I mean, I was when I was the first album my mother ever bought me, well, two albums. It was Destiny's Child, The Writings on the Wall, and then I don't know if people remember this group, 702. They were back in the late 90s. I had their second album. I don't know. I was a kid. I just loved, popular culture, watching TVs, going to the movies, having cartoons all over the place, magazines. I always say I was a teenager. I was kind of different from a lot of kids. Like I wasn't like after high school, I wasn't trying to, cause like living in Long Island, everyone does sports, like lacrosse, football, basketball, track. I wasn't one of those kids. I was kind of one of those kids that was like glued to Wikipedia and glued to like, e-news, watching e-news religiously every night at 7 p.m., watching, going to PerezHilton.com. Music was such a great escape for me, especially when you grow up. And, for me, sometimes my mother and brother was always, older brother was always bickering with each other and whether I was getting bullied. Like, I don't know, pop culture for me is kind of an escapism, the music, just being able to just kind of escape within the music. It can make you feel happy. It can make you feel low. There's always, songs for everything. In terms of celebrity news, it's kind of, some celebrity news are very comical and very funny, some of the I think what strikes a chord with me with some celebrities is how relatable they are, and sometimes when they're going through things or they deal with certain things or they come from certain backgrounds, you don't necessarily feel alone. So sometimes you just feel like you can just live vicariously through them. And also it's just, even watching shows or whatever the case may be, like, especially when I got older and went to college, like you kind of like, it's very interesting to kind of like analyze different things and kind of, even though you can't take everything on TV with a grain of salt or whatever the case may be, it's such a great way to kind of learn about different cultures and different perspectives and just different things in general, so that's where I feel like my love has come from.
Okay, so and then why did you choose journalism per se? As obviously, like you said, you can be in the music business any way, shape, or form. You don't always have to be an artist. What was it that the journalism media struck you there, as opposed to say like the business side or being a manager? What was it about journalism?
In 2015, I want to say, and I was kind of going back and forth since like 2000 when I was 14 if I wanted to go into like journalism, I wanted to be on the business side because I would watch e-news and stuff like that. And I think what it was that I was always like bringing up celebrity news stories or things music related lives. Or did you hear about XYZ artists to my classmates or my teachers or my older family members? And everyone is not celebrity, is cares about that stuff that much. And so they were kind of like, oh, Khaaliq, you should, especially when YouTube got popular, they're like, Khaaliq, you should have your own like YouTube channel, or you should, kind of venture into that, or maybe write a blog or something, especially when I was becoming a middle schooler, blogs were becoming very, very popular. And then in 2015, and I took this in myself with school, I was listening to, and also towards the end of my high school career, I was watching a lot of The Breakfast Club. I was watching like the Wendy Williams show, The Read, the podcast with Kid Fairy and Crystal, and I was like, maybe I should go the communications route, And so when I was in Newberry, I think my first was public relations because I thought, maybe I can go public relations. And I switched from that to journalism to kind of feel like find what was the right fit for me. Yeah, public relations I wasn't a big fan of just because, artists, it's just that it's kind of like babysitting someone in a music in like professionally in a way, because you're basically always on call with artists, and artists do a lot and you're working for them and stuff like that. Whereas like when you're in journalism, when you're trying to be a media personality, you're just you're working with artists for at the most for maybe like 40 minutes or an hour, whatever the case may be. Like if you're because when you're a radio personality, they come on the show for like 40 minutes, or your TV, since TV is mad short, you're there for 10 minutes. Kind of how I picture it, because also my school was there wasn't a lot to like, because it's communications, and there wasn't a lot of concentrations to pick from. There was like public relations, TV video production, and journalism. And I was like, maybe I'll go journalism because I can write very well. And so those classes were very intense. It was always like write. Because a lot of classes I was taking with the same professor, since our school is a little bit smaller. But also my professor encouraged me to consider doing doing broadcast media, radio and TV. And that's probably why I started interning at different radio stations and stuff like that. I think I like broadcast media and broadcast journalism better. I do want to be a media personality, not particularly a journalist, because I want to be, to commentate and but I also feel like today's world, there's not really, people don't kind of know the difference between a journalism and a media personality. And still, of course, you have to be accurate. You do your research. When you have artists, know what you're talking about and know what you're getting into.
Well, no, I think that's key. And, I'll just go ahead and say it. It's my show. I say what I want. That I think you would be great at it. One, because you've had the formal training of, like you said, you got to be accurate. And I think that having that journalism background, you won't be somebody who just got hot on the streets and all of a sudden blew up. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some people like that, and there's some people who actually do have media training. So that's one of the things that I'm excited to see come down the line for your career. Can you talk about what it was like being a student radio DJ at WNHU 88.7?
Yeah. Well, I think I was on the online. Yeah, I was on the online one because you had to go through a formal training to go to the FM one. Because they just can't let anyone go on there because people say things that we couldn't say. Um, it was pretty good. I was it was kind of I guess a training ground for me, because I didn't, like, should I play a whole bunch of songs or whatever when I don't know, what particularly to talk about. Should I invite, also I had a lot of kind of starting into it, a lot of flaky friends and stuff like that, in terms of like, oh, come close to me, and then they wouldn't show up, or they said I can't do it, or whatever the case may be. So I guess that's kind of very discouraging at times, because it's like, okay, what am I gonna talk about? And also trying to learn how to relate to listeners and whatever. I guess for me it's also kind of about letting my guard down and just being honest and transparent, and kind of getting the free range. Um, so yeah, it was WNHU too. Yeah, it wasn't WNHU
I
88.
definitely said
Yeah.
said the letters wrong. I apologize. So when you're doing that, do you get to choose like what you like? Do you get to choose the songs from the? Do you have like a set lineup where you want to
Oh
go,
yeah,
or
we
do
had a
you?
sign. Oh yeah, we def yep well, yeah, we could play whatever, I believe. Yeah, if you're on the FM, of course, you can't play songs with cursing in it. And that made
Okay.
it difficult sometimes, because some of the songs I like I can never seem to find a clean version of that. Plus, like, what the station managers, whatever, they like, they weren't obviously monitoring, the all the studios 24/7. So there was kind of a little free range on that. I was gonna say, when I was at Newberry though, I feel like we had some restrictions. We couldn't. We had an internet radio station. We couldn't curse. We couldn't. I feel like we couldn't play certain songs. It was just the technology too was very like outdated, And I feel like when it comes to me podcasting and videos and stuff like that, I don't know. I feel like it could be a perfectionist sometimes. I need to be able to hear me. I need all levels up. Sometimes I do like the idea of co-host, being co-host with other people, because you can kind of bounce off topics and talking with each other. I also did take a radio production class my first semester as well, and so that was kind of interesting. And we also had our radio station. We had a podcasting room, or something where we can pre-tape, radio stuff if we don't necessarily don't want to be like live on air at the moment. Um, yeah, and also I think it kind of works for me. I feel like with doing radio and television, because it's like I'm very hands on when it comes to stuff. and so that's very interesting to learn. So yeah, I'm very that's another session I have with technology and gadgets and stuff like that. And I
Now,
was very bold. I feel like I was very I didn't realize how fearless I was thinking about, because a couple years ago when I went to Newberry, um, our radio station, I was trying to find people to interview. And we interviewed. I think I met this up and coming rapper. I don't know who I met him from. I think I met him through some a friend of mine. My memory could be, it's been like 4 or 5 years since I went to that school. And then, but I also interviewed an adult film star too. So that was very, and I wish I still had that interview, but there was, because of technology, whatever, like the outdated technology, it didn't properly record it. Cause and even there were times when I interviewed some of those people, I didn't necessarily. That's before I learned how to do prep and stuff like that. Like really, like prepping for interviewing people. I was just kind of freestyling, kind of like bouncing, like trying to get questions off the top of my head. I'm like, what do I want to know from this person? So
now, is it easy for you to write your questions down, or is it easy just to kind of let it flow?
I wouldn't, I wouldn't, I would say let it flow, but I guess now, kind of reading down, learning information about them, just so that I can kind of, think to myself, oh, so the questions can formulate in my head rather than just kind of writing the questions down. I don't know, because sometimes like I'm very spur at the moment with my questions, and curiosities.
And like, what kind of advice would you give to other student DJs who are just learning?
Uh, be Definitely have a lot of spend a lot of time with the station manager. You can definitely learn a lot from them. Put your guard down. When
Hold
you
on,
start
repeat
off,
that. It seemed
everything's
like
not
the
gonna.
phone went out.
I'm sorry. I was saying spend a lot of time with the station manager. Put your guard down. Also, one big advice I remember my station manager giving me was that don't put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to applying to jobs and internships. I would definitely say kind of learn to be, continue to be conversational, try to find a way to relate to listeners. Um, oh, that was one thing I did not like about our school's radio station. We didn't have like the phone line, where call stations, you can call, people can call up and stuff like that. That would have been that it would have made the experience much more fun. But that's the advice I would give. As far as music, I mean, that's to your preference.
Mhm.
But I would say keep things relevant. Yeah, that's what I would give.
Cool. And now that you've had that experience, I gotta ask you this question before we get into Sway in the Morning. When did
Mhm.
you? The title of the show is called "Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling." When
Mhm.
did Leaky break through the glass ceiling?
In terms of in
Just
terms of overcoming adversity.
yeah, overcome adversity, knowing this is what you want to do, understanding like I'm made for this business. I'm here.
Mhm. I'm trying to think. Of Honestly, that's a very good question. I would say just there was times that hmm, I never really imagined, I graduated from high school, wasn't a valedictorian, wasn't an honor student, grades wasn't really there, and never really imagined like how, I always said, it's, when I was younger, I said I always want to be in entertainment, I want to be in music, I want to be able to, be in that space of other people, and be able to have my voice heard, and never, in uh, years later, I would never imagine that that was actually coming true, like a full circle moment. I would definitely say, I was doing a lot of like hustling in terms of like trying to, go to the city and go to network events and try to, convince people to look at my resume, give me a chance and stuff like that. And I definitely had a lot of times where I was let down. But I think when I heard, when a lot of times when, times when the things that I've accomplished, the internships and gigs and freelance stuff that I've been able to work when I've had, I remember being at intern at Power 5.1. I had, DL Hughley say, you're going to be a star one day. I was like, what? Me? Or I remember when I was at 105. another day I was there. We had Princess Nokia. Princess Nokia is an up and coming rapper. Her manager came, and I was in, the time I was interning for Angie or whatever, and she was like, you should. I was like, yeah, I can totally see you on, hearing on the radio one day. Like, you're really funny. You definitely help Angie out and be her co-host. And I was like, wow, like I was not expecting that. Or even when I've had, people from that I haven't spoken to in years saying, wow, like I see you out here doing it. I'm, so proud of you. It's people, and it's kind of like when you tell people you want to go into media, entertainment, or the arts and stuff, they kind of look at you like, oh, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. Or, they have this like, why don't you or sometimes you might get this like, why don't you just get a regular job? You're wasting your time and stuff. So, that's when I realized I was like, wow, I really have overcome a lot, and I really, like you said, breaking through the glass ceiling, and I feel like I have more accomplishment, more stuff to accomplish.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, But one thing here, what I like to do is celebrate my friends' wins. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And obviously, the best thing I love about all y'all is that I haven't had one person on this guest, and I'm lost. I think this is will be about episode 15, 16. Nobody's like, oh, I've arrived and I don't need to learn anything else. You know what I mean? I had
Mhm.
Tremone Lucas on here a few weeks ago, and he said you always learn it, But one of the things that I like to pull out you guys is for you guys to celebrate your wins, for you guys to
Mhm.
understand, hey, I'm just in this when it comes down to
Mhm.
it. So,
Yeah.
now let's talk about Sway in the morning. You intern. Well, we're gonna say work because it was work. Yeah, the
Yeah.
term is
It was
intern, but it's
paid, so.
work.
Mhm.
And you work there in music programming. That's a dream place for a lot of people, especially with the same interests as you. What was it
And
like? Can you talk about that experience?
first I sorry, I just gotta I gotta go back to the last question you asked me. This is when I
Oh,
realized I broke through the glass ceiling. Summer 2018. I was, an unpaid intern at Hot 97 and Hip Hop DX, and I was working at Stop and Shop, and that, working retail is not always the best. And there's crazy customers and crazy supervisor, but I remember by the end of the summer, I was applying to all different internships, and I went on different interviews. Um, there was literally in August into early September, I had five like internship offers, like five yeses. That's when I probably realized I really just broke through the glass ceiling. I was like, oh my God. I'd gotten one from Hollywood Unlocked. I got one from what was it? I got one from NBC, from SiriusXM, from Vibe magazine, and from Power and 5.1 for the Breakfast Club, which the Breakfast Club is very powerful as Sway in the morning. And I was like, wow, like it felt like I and not to say I arrived, but it felt like I finally arrived. Yesterday it was Latoya Luckett's birthday, and I say that mention that just because she had a time where she was pushed out as the Destiny's Child, and then she came back, and then she had a #1 album in America, and like those things can truly those kind of accomplishments can never truly be taken away from you. Period.
mhm.
But and it's like you said, it's important to give people their flowers while they're still here. Okay, so can you ask me the question about Sway in the morning?
Well, just talk about the experience, talk about,
Hmm.
when you first started working there and what it was like. And like I said, I mean, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You had
Hmm.
them and Breakfast Club on the table?
Yeah, no. I didn't have. So I didn't. So for the fall of 2018, they
Mhm.
wanted me to be an intern for. I think it was the Karen Hunter show, which is on
Okay.
Urban View. I had interviewed at SiriusXM for that summer, and they had considered me first for I had an interview for the Lord Sear show, which comes after Sway, and then they interviewed me for Karen Hunter's show because I told them I wanted to do urban music because I like all types of music, but R&B and hip hop is like that's like what I love the most. And so yeah, I'm an R&B hip hop person at heart. And I got an internship offer with them and the Breakfast Club. When I was interning there for the Breakfast Club, that was after I left Vibe magazine, scenes internship program. And because they already were at capacity for the Breakfast Club interns, they said, you want to try for Angie, and so after 2 different interviews, I was with Angie. But yeah, could have been on the Breakfast Club. Wasn't able to, just because of the Metro train issues with New York City, the Metro North. I was coming from Connecticut, so I would take classes like half the week, and like couple trying to think, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the other days I was coming to New York City, and the Breakfast Club, you got to be there at 5 a.m. So yeah, and sway. So back to the sway in the morning. Sorry.
Yeah, so just talk about that experience. What was it like working there, and what was some of your
It
highlights?
It was highlights. It was really great. I always kind of compare it though to I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, or if anyone listening has seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada. It's kind of similar in that vein. So the sway in the morning, it starts at 8 o'clock. It starts at 8 o'clock, 8:30, and so I have to be there by 7:30 a.m. I live in Long Island, and anyone who knows, if you live in Long Island or you live in like Westchester, whatever the case may be, you got to like prepare your commute a little bit extra early than people who live in Brooklyn or Harlem or whatever the case may be. So getting there, and it was every day a week. There were times that were tough, but it 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 was nothing but love. They want you to do well. They want you to succeed well. I was the only intern there, so I was, doing a lot of the work by myself, which was different from other internships where I was working with other interns. So I was getting there. I was setting up banners. I was making sure everyone had their water and coffee. Which, if you work in radio or you work in TV, now I understand. And that's another thing I learned recently, is that now I know why people always have water and coffee and things of that nature, because you're always talking all the time, and you want to keep your vocals going and stuff like that. You don't want your mouth dry. It was so great. Celebrities coming in at, every day. Sirius XM, we've had different celebs of different walks of life and different backgrounds come every day. Sway is such a very humble. He's such a nice person. He's very against a lot of times in the industry, there's this kind of like crabs in a barrel mentality where, people just want to keep their positions until the wheels fall off, and not, help and bring up other people. And he was very much the opposite of that. Being a pop culture, nerd, from when I was little, really, helped me a long way, because I was probably on air a lot of times, during my time on Sway in the Morning, when other, interns in previous years have been, because I was able to kind of like come and fill in the gaps of, oh, this person was born this year. No, this person put out this album. This person did X, Y, and Z. And it was great seeing, celebrities come in and out every day. I mean, granted, the thing is, I'm from New York, so it's kind of not like, when you're from New York, LA, or Atlanta, when you're from those areas, it's kind of not like, it's not like, it's kind of normalized that, XYZ person was walking down the street or whatever the case may be. But also being an intern for Sway, you learn a lot of things. You learn a lot of things just beyond, the stuff that you need to learn to be a successful, in the entertainment industry. Sway is a big family person, so that's one thing I took away. Another thing I took away is that you can be, in the industry but not of the industry. I remember a couple of years ago I was watching an interview that he did with Wendy, and they kind of both talked about how they come do their job and they go back home and stuff like that. And me, I could be the same way sometimes. I like to network. Don't get me wrong, I'm a social butterfly, but sometimes I like to be a grandpa. I like to go home, or I like to be with, people that I know, friends or whatever the case may be, and not have to like reintroduce myself to this new person and that new person. Also it kind of learned to make me much faster doing different stuff like screening phone calls, because I had no experience doing that before, at my other internships. Learning things from Heather, from Heather B, his co-host, and Tracy. They're such great people. We've definitely had a lot of laughs on air that I'm not going to talk about. And some of the program directors, like Dion Summers. When I called him one time, I said Deion Sanders, and I'm like, that's not his name. Apparently, there's an athlete named Deion Sanders.
What? You said apparently? Man, he's the greatest cornerback of all time.
Yeah, yeah, guys, I'm not really into sports. Yeah, when we had Jerry Rice come in last semester, and I was like, I don't know who this is. But now I know who some athletes are because of my friends in our group chats, like Stephen A. Smith.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was just very great. It definitely boosted my confidence in terms of this is really this is really where I belong. And of course in the industry trying to get jobs, you have your highs and lows, but it's like it's just I can't picture myself doing anything else. It was such a great time.
Yeah.
It's definitely family like. And I advise anyone who becomes an intern in the future, do not take it for granted. Do not take it for granted. Find other creative ways to make yourself look different. When you're an intern at different places. And then I think the last day I wanted to make sure that I get them a gift. And so Sway is from the Bay Area. He's very enthusiastic about the Bay Area. And also I learned about some music artists from back in the day through being an intern for him because I didn't know who Sheila E. was before I interned at Sway. And so he kind of so I kind of learned more about those people and more about different hip hop artists from back in the day. I got Sway a T-shirt with like all the popular artists from the Bay Area. Um, I think it's always important when you intern to get your intern supervisor's gifts and gifts that are personal, and especially if they're like a Sway or whatever and they have money. Get them something that's like that's original and different. Not something that they can easily buy. Something that just can make them remember you.
Why ain't nobody teach me that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually that's where the music thing, my kind of music nerdiness kind of comes in because I was like, that's what I'll get him, shirt with all the popular artists from there since that he's very ride or die with the Bay Area.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Now, who was some of like, did you while you were there, did you have in the wrestling world, we call it a mark out moment, but it's basically like a fan, starstruck moment. Did you have any starstruck moments while you were at Sway in the morning?
I'm trying to think. I feel like the only one I can really think of was Tank. Um, I consider that's my celebrity crush. Other than that, not really. I mean, yeah, not really to be honest. I mean, there was some artists that were supposed to come that I will not get into. That I will not. But I mean, my friend who interned the semester before. Um, they definitely had guests I wish I could have seen then. Well, I mean, I've met Megan Thee Stallion 2 years ago, when I was at Vibe magazine, but this was like 6 months before she blew up. Um, yeah, this was 6 months before she blew up. And so when they told me to do social for her at Vibe, I was like, who is Meg Thee Stallion? But my friend, yeah, the summer my friend interned there, Chance the Rapper was there, Monica was there, Megan Thee Stallion was there, so I definitely would have been very hype over Monica.
Me too.
um, yeah, yeah, not really to be honest, not really. If I actually, you know what? The I was there for so they had their end of the year show before the year ends at the YouTube studios in New York City and like downtown New York. And I saw Lear Cohen there. And for those who don't know who Lear Cohen is, he's a very powerful record executive. For many years, he was an executive over at Def Jam Records, and then I think he was at 3100, and now he works at YouTube. He's definitely put on a lot of. He signed and played a role in some of the careers of some of my favorite artists from the '90s. Trying to think in particular, Foxy Brown. But that was like, oh my God, Leonard Cohen is here. So
Awesome. Well, what's next? Now that what's the ultimate goal?
the ultimate goal is to obviously you got to work your way up in the industry, is looking for an assistant type of job, production assistant, social media assistant. Now that social media is all the rage, but that's my goal, to be an entertainment news personality, particularly within urban, but anywhere I can get anywhere I can get employed. I love entertainment news. I don't just love, I mean, I love, Black celebrity news stories, but I also try to keep up with the mainstream. And that's one advice I learned from going to the NABJ conference in Miami, which I already knew before because it didn't matter if I was reading People magazine or I was, on the Shade Room or whatever the case may be. But I remember Nichelle Turner and Kevin Frazier, the advice they were basically offering is that for entertainment news is that you have to keep up with everything because they go to everything. They go to the BET Awards, they go to the NAACP Awards, but they also go to the Grammys. They're at the Country Music Awards. They're at the Country Video Music Awards. Or I think they have. I don't particularly follow country music, but they have their own separate award shows. You have to know everything because a lot of times, these white people do not. A lot of times they do not. A lot of times they get stuff confused, and that's one thing I can learn through college is being media literate and also kind of knowing that, when you go on different websites and you see certain headlines, a Black person didn't write this, and that, what the kind of the audience is serving to. Like when Nipsey Hussle passed away, I remember Hollywood Life had an article and they said Nipsey Hussle's girlfriend Lauren London. And I'm like, to me, it kind of sounded, I can understand, okay, people who consume Hollywood Life do not know who Lauren London is, but she has her own career outside of Nipsey Hussle. I knew her from, she was in ATL, and then she was in Miss Christmas, and then she was known for being in a relationship with Lil Wayne or whatever the case may be. So, or you go on maybe E! News and you see, they refer to Lori Harvey as Steve Harvey's stepdaughter, or TMZ where they're saying Love and Hip Hop star Julia Santana. I'm like, he is a whole successful rapper. So that stuff definitely irks me sometimes, or even when last year they did an interview, someone on the radio did an interview with Megan Thee Stallion and was so unaware that her mother had passed away months prior and was bringing up her mother, and, everything, the room just got silent, It just got very silent.
Well, you bring up a good point. It needs to be more of us in the room.
So also one thing Sway also kind of taught me, and also what you learn through his internship, is that it's okay to pivot careers. It's okay to pivot careers. Him and Heather B used to be rappers, which a lot of people don't know. Their careers, didn't take off, crazy big like a Jay-Z or a Lil' Kim. But they went over to radio and they learned that stuff. They learned their craft. They studied it. It took some years for them to do it, because how I was introduced to Sway was from seeing him on MTV, because he had a very distinct look. And I do believe, it's okay to pivot careers, but I feel like sometimes what does get frustrating is that a lot of musicians or celebrities who may have not, their careers maybe slowed down and, what got them famous, they come to our territory trying to be journalists and media personalities, and some of them do well, but a lot of them crash and burn. How Remy Ma was talking about, Antonio Brown's case and saying that women who sue are, prostitutes or whatever. And I was like, that's very disrespectful and that's very uneducated about the situation like that. But go ahead to continue what you were saying.
I was gonna say, well, I was just go ahead and ask you the next question now, as we get closer to the students registering for NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. This is obviously how you and I met. What advice would you give to them if this is their first conference coming up in Washington, D.C.?
I would say, 1, save your money. 2, if you don't have a job or whatever, get one as soon as possible to stack up your money. 3, look into Airbnbs if you don't have family or friends you can stay within the area. I would say, because I was in Miami and I spent almost $800 on that hotel, on the 5-night hotel, and I was rooming with 4 other guys. So that's another thing too. I would advise, I know sometimes college students, sometimes we can be like, or young adults are like, I want to be by myself. I don't want to share a room with other people, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if you're a college student pinching pennies, you might want to reconsider that. I would definitely say join group me's. I would definitely say if you're, depending on where you live, I would try to go to as many networking events or kind of learn, or maybe even go to your school's career center on what to say, because I feel like some people may come to the conference and they say the wrong thing to the wrong person, or they might be too cocky, or maybe too confidence can be misconstrued as cockiness. I would definitely say make sure you have your hair done, makeup done, clothes pressed, professional clothing, and of course casual clothing. I would definitely say make sure you have your resume done and make sure it's absolutely clean and organized. I would definitely, make sure to get people's emails, make sure to get people's business cards when you're at the conference, make sure to get people's Instagrams. I would say follow up with people. Also, would just be not afraid to socialize with other, other your peers, with your students, because, the people you like, I guess, kind of like when people go to college, they kind of they tell them, look to your left, look to your right. These are the people who you're going to come up in the world with. That's really the thing, because you never know, the connections you make, where these people are going to end up going. You never know how successful people are going to end up. I would definitely say, definitely don't let the anxiety get the best of you. Be a social butterfly. It's very important. I don't know. It's kind of like a lot of times people do have social anxiety or anxiety, and they don't necessarily want to, socialize with other people. But the industry is kind of not set up like that. Set up for that type of situation. Media entertainment, you do have to network. You do have to, befriend people, and the people you network with, or whatever the case may be. It's not that necessarily, you just use them, whatever, to get a job, whatever. You may end up becoming good buddies with somebody. I definitely have a close amount of good friends, in the entertainment industry. It doesn't matter where they work at or how many followers, like, they have on Instagram. We're just genuine friends with each other, and I definitely think that's very important. I would stress. And also just listen and always keep an open ear. When I was at the conference, I want to say my first one was it was 2018 in Detroit. It was interesting. I was there with Ampane, and I was there with Marlon and Walker. And one of the things they were teaching us was make sure you read your contracts. Make sure you maybe have someone look at your contract when you get your first big boy job or big girl job. Another, trying to think what I was thinking off the top of my head. But that's all I can think about right now. As
Now,
far as advice I would give them.
What was your first conference?
Detroit.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that one. I heard it was really good though.
It was really good, and I love it so much because growing up there wasn't a lot of people like me that wanted to go into the industry, and whether it was in journalism or media or arts or stuff like that. Especially in Long Island, a lot of people just wanted to get a regular regular job, like being a nurse, a doctor, a police officer, whatever the case may be. And so, and even at my school, we don't have a lot of students in our communication program. And then a lot of them, graduate. A lot of them when I first came there, when they graduated, it was really hard for them to find jobs. Some of them just kind of gave up on trying to be in the industry and worked regular jobs. Some finally got to where they wanted to be, but it took like 2-3 years later. And part of the reason for that was that, I feel like there's not, what NABJ has definitely taught me, and going to network events or whatever, is that it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And at school, we didn't really get, I mean, I can only speak for my school, but it was kind of like, they teach you stuff, but they don't kind of necessarily, like, they'll teach you how to, be a proper writer or be a proper reporter, how to, operate a camera, but they don't necessarily tell you, how to network with people, how to shake hands and stuff like that. Those were things I had to learn on my own outside of college, or even sometimes through my mother. I remember I was driving with my mother and her close friend, and they were telling me to start, you have to send thank you notes to people after you have an interview. And I'm so glad they taught me that, because, before, by previous then I wasn't doing that, and now I do that all the time. So definitely do your research when it comes to how to interview, how to ask questions. It was such a great just going to the conference, because there's people who we just share the same love. We had the same commonality. Whether it was people who wanted to do sports, there was people who wanted to do politics, people technology, there's people who wanted to do entertainment. And I didn't necessarily have to feel alone in my struggle, or alone in terms of like, I'm the only one who wants to do this and everyone else wants to, be a regular, you know what I'm saying, a regular person job. And that's also great for students, because if you don't have family like me, or who works in the industry, you have you get mentors, you get people you can kind of talk to and have that safe space to talk about certain things, So it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. It's like 4 or 5 days of just, Black people. We could all just have a great time. Of course, keep it professional in certain spaces, the workshops and things of that nature. But it was truly such a blast. It's like, I always say, it's like the family reunion I've never had. I really can't think of another media entertainment conference in that same vein as NABJ. But yeah, it was great. It's like a summer treat, 4 days off from work or school, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's how it was.
Man, that's awesome. And I always I feel the same way. It's definitely the family reunion. I will admit when I'm not there, I'm like irritated, upset, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't at so yeah, I didn't go. I went my first one was 13 in Orlando, and we got free tickets to Disney World, so that was great. And
Mhm.
I didn't go to another one until 2016 because I was in Connecticut for 2 years at ESPN. So when I moved back to Baltimore, I went to the one in DC. However, I only went to the Friday night party, and but I went to the hotel first, and I was able to reconnect with a lot of people, especially fresh out of ESPN. I was able to see a lot of my colleagues, and then obviously going to 17. But I missed 18 in Detroit, and I can just remember sitting there, and I'm in a group chat looking at everybody talk, and all y'all talking, all the fun y'all having, and I'm like, man, I wish I was there. So then, obviously Miami was a ball. So I can't wait. You booked? You come in this year?
Oh, definitely. And I'm
Oh,
so
okay.
glad that it's in DC because I live closer to DC. I live like 5 hours away since I'm in New York. And I have hopefully, I have friends or whatever that will let me, crash at their house for a couple of days because I do not want to pay for a hotel. I mean, Airbnbs are much cheaper. But I would, if I don't have to pay for that, I would rather not, especially I'm graduating this semester. So, I will save my money as much as possible. I will say also too, with anyone who wants to get an Airbnb, double check because you can get scammed through Airbnbs. They actually just did a whole article on a future story on that on Vice on how like people are getting scammed through Airbnb. So double check. There's if you go to certain websites, they'll kind of teach you how to like double check and see who get a super host. Look at reviews. Make sure it's also very important. Anyone who wants to be in media entertainment, no matter if they're my age or older or whatever, be like very social media literate. Kind of learn the tricks and the tools of it. Um, but yeah, that's what it is.
Well, that's awesome, man. I definitely appreciate you taking the time out your busy schedule to come on the show and share your story. It's one I think a lot of people are going to benefit from. One of the things that I've been happy is that when people send me messages at Brian H. Waters, they'll say, "Hey, man, I really like this guest, or I really like that one. This person inspired me," or they get an opportunity to binge listen. So this is one of those stories that I know that I'm definitely gonna get a lot of hits for because of that. So, and it's most important, it's about you guys getting a chance to share your story. And who knows, you never know. The next recruiter could be out there listening. So if somebody told me they landed a job because the recruiter listened to the podcast, you don't know how happy that would make me.
Mhm. And land a job or whatever, or even sometimes people also persistence is a big thing. Part of the reason I was because I had interviewed with Sway for Sway in the morning for the summer semester, and I couldn't go. I mean I'm not no, I'm sorry I couldn't go. No, I'm saying I couldn't go because had I not gotten had I gotten this internship for the summer of 2019, I probably wouldn't have gone to NABJ Miami because I have to be there every single day at the Stay in the Morning show. But what I meant to say was that when I had I had an interview with them, and then I ran into Sway when I was at an MTV taping, and so I was like, oh, because I got a chance to be on stage or whatever and dance because they were doing like some tribute to Madonna, and I was saying to Sway, I was like, I applied, for the internship program. My name is Khaaliq. I applied. I mentioned the people's names who were in charge of hiring and whatever the case may be. And so people remember you because it just reminded me because with Tyler Perry, there was a woman I think last year I want to say she like she got a billboard or whatever and showed her face or whatever like Tyler Perry hired me, and people were looking at her crazy or whatever. But eventually she got the the role on his TV show or movie or whatever the case may be. So definitely persistence and shooting your shot all 2020.
There you go. There you go. Look, where can the people find you?
People can follow me on social media. On Instagram, it's Leaky Crowder. It's Leeky Crowder, Crowder, and then they can find me then on Twitter as well. Free, free feel free to add me on Facebook as well if you want. It's Khaaliq Khaaliq, last name Crowder, Crowder. and that's where you'll be able to find me. I'm hopefully coming out with my podcast this week. Earlier this week, actually, I for those to try to catch my friend, I was on my other friend's podcast episode talking about the whole situation with Meg Thee Stallion and Jhené Aiko.
Yeah,
His
go
name
ahead
is
and plug
Devin
the
Ashby.
podcast. Plug both of them.
And Devin Ashby's my podcast is coming out soon. It's called The Leakage, and it's all things pop culture news. My unfiltered commentary on stuff. On certain topics, and then I was on Devin Ashby's podcast called Play by Play Analysis, giving my take on the whole Meg Thee Stallion situation where her label's blocking her from releasing music and not letting her renegotiate her contract, and also Jhené Aiko, who just dropped her new album. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it at the moment because I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's basically I think her middle name, which is out right now. So make sure to check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, Dev, that's one of my boys, one of my mentees. So I'm definitely proud of him for what he's been doing too. And I'm happy that you get ready. Why you ain't say that earlier in the show that you about to drop a podcast, man?
Yeah, it's I'm still working out some of the kinks, still trying to change up some of the stuff because like I said, I'm a very perfectionist and stuff like that. So I don't, maybe I was trying to do a Beyonce surprise, just drop it, here it is. But it's definitely been in the works, and it's definitely been encouraged by other people.
All right. Well, I can't wait for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Khaaliq Crowder, make sure you follow him. I'm telling you, if you don't do it now, you're going to wish you had done it sooner. Khaaliq, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it to you as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Khaaliq Crowder. Make sure you follow him and follow his journey as he makes his way onto the airwaves. Coming up next week, I'm bringing on a lady who is in radio, actually making her transition to television, and that is the Jazz Williams. So you won't want to miss that. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and yes, we are on Pandora Radio as well as iHeartRadio. So make sure you subscribe there. As always, don't let no one put up a glass ceiling that you will not allow yourself to break through. This podcast is brought to you by B. Waters Productions. It is produced and edited by myself, Brian H. Waters, with the music brought to you by Hypnosis. You can find Hypnosis on Instagram at hypno_beats.